Black detective mistaken for a suspect by racist cop. What happens next will shock you. The flashing cherries on the black and whites painted the rain-slicked street in strobing red and blue. Miles Corbin ducked under the yellow tape, the acrid smell of burnt rubber and shattered glass stinging his nostrils. The Diamond Dream storefront was a gaping maw of splintered wood and glinting shards. Not a pretty sight, even for a veteran like him. "Corbin," he announced to the uniformed officer guarding the perimeter, flashing his badge. "Let's get the area secured. I want a tight seal. No rubberneckers." The officer, a young kid with more eagerness than experience, snapped to attention. "Yes, sir, Detective Corbin. Already on it, sir." Miles surveyed the scene. The initial chaos was subsiding, replaced by a hushed anxiety. The air thrummed with it. He ran a gloved hand along the jagged edge of the broken display window. Expensive glass, probably reinforced. They came prepared. Inside, the store manager, a pale, thin man with perpetually worried eyes, wrung his hands. "Detective, thank God you're here. They took everything. The Star of Seraphina, the Emperor's Tear, everything." Miles cut him off with a calm yet firm tone. "Mr. Elias Thorne," the manager squeaked. "Mr. Thorne, I need you to focus. Tell me exactly what happened, from the beginning. Every detail, no matter how insignificant it may seem." He pulled out his notebook, the pen poised and ready. Thorne swallowed hard. "They came in, it was so fast. 2 of them. Masks. Guns. They yelled, told everyone to get down. One of them smashed the display cases. The other, he was watching the door, making sure no one came in." "Weapons?" Miles asked, his gaze sweeping the interior. He spotted something, a faint scuff mark on the polished marble floor near the entrance, almost invisible. "Guns," Thorne confirmed, his voice trembling. "Big ones. I couldn't see much else. I was on the floor, like they told me." Miles turned to the security guard, a burly man nursing a bleeding gash on his forehead with a makeshift bandage. "And you?" "They jumped me," the guard mumbled, his voice thick. "Right at the door. Hit me with something hard. Didn't see a thing after that." Miles crouched down, examining the scuff mark. It was subtle, but definitely there. The marble was pristine, almost obsessively polished. Someone had tried to clean it, but hadn't done a thorough job. Something heavy was dragged across here, and recently. "Did either of you see a vehicle? Hear anything unusual?" Miles pressed. Thorne shook his head, still visibly shaken. The guard, however, hesitated. I think I heard a van. Dark-colored. It sped off right after I got hit." Miles scribbled in his notebook. "Dark-colored van. Anything else? Make, model?" The guard shook his head again, defeated. Miles stood up, his gaze lingering on the display cases. The emptiness was a stark testament to the thieves' efficiency. But something didn't quite sit right. He circled the perimeter of the display area, his eyes scanning every inch. Then he stopped. "Mr. Thorne," he said, his voice low. "The Star of Seraphina. Where exactly was it displayed?" Thorne pointed to a shattered case in the center. "Right there, Detective." It was the centerpiece. Miles knelt again, carefully examining the shards of glass. Most of them were scattered outwards, as expected. But there were a few, very small pieces, embedded in the velvet lining of the display case itself. And they weren't clear like the rest. They had a faint, almost imperceptible, blue tint. He carefully extracted one with a pair of tweezers he pulled from his pocket. Holding it up to the light, he saw it clearly. Not glass. Sapphire. A tiny fragment, almost invisible. The Star of Seraphina wasn't just a diamond. It was a diamond surrounded by sapphires. So why would sapphire fragments be inside the case instead of outside, scattered with the rest of the debris? Miles pocketed the fragment. "Thank you, gentlemen. I'll need your statements in writing. And Mr. Thorne, I need a complete inventory of everything that was taken. Every single Peace. He turned to the young officer. Get forensics in here. I want every square inch of this place dusted. And tell them to bring a damn good microscope. Badge and prejudice. A siren's wail sliced through the relative quiet, finally halting a block away. Miles didn't turn. He kept his gaze fixed on the boarded-up storefront across the street, the chipped paint a silent testament to neglect. A figure detached itself from the idling patrol car, the flashing lights painting frantic strobes across the cracked pavement. Officer K. He moved with a swagger that telegraphed insecurity, his hand resting a little too long, a little too possessively, on the butt of his service weapon. He stopped a few feet away from Miles, his eyes narrowed, assessing. The air crackled with unspoken animosity. Miles could taste it, metallic and bitter on his tongue. Well, O'Malley drawled, his voice thick with condescension. Look what we have here. Loitering, huh? In this neighborhood, that's practically a career choice. Miles sighed inwardly. He'd anticipated this. He reached into his jacket, slowly, deliberately, and extracted his badge wallet. The gold shield glinted under the harsh streetlights. Detective Corbin. I'm with the 12th precinct. O'Malley didn't even glance at it. Detective, huh? Is that what they're calling it these days? More like trespassing, if you asked me. He took a step closer, invading Miles's personal space. The scent of cheap cologne and stale coffee assaulted Miles's nostrils. Let's see some ID then. And make it snappy. Miles kept his expression neutral, fighting the urge to roll his eyes. This wasn't protocol, this was personal. He opened the wallet further, revealing his photo ID next to the badge. Detective Miles Corbin. Badge number. Don't play games with me. O'Malley snapped, his face reddening. He swatted the wallet out of Miles's hand. It skidded across the concrete, coming to rest near the curb. I asked for ID? Not some cheap imitation. The sound of the wallet hitting the ground seemed to amplify in the sudden silence. A few passers-by stopped, their curiosity piqued. A woman with a grocery bag clutched it tighter, her eyes darting nervously between Miles and O'Malley. A young man pulled out his phone, ostensibly to check the time, but Miles knew he was recording. Officer, Miles said, his voice calm despite the simmering anger beneath. You're making a mistake. I'm here on official business. He gestured towards the building across the street. I'm investigating a series of break-ins. O'Malley laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Sure you are. And I'm the Queen of England. Just move along, buddy. Before I decide to book you for resisting arrest. The small crowd was growing, the murmurs intensifying. Miles saw their faces, a mixture of apprehension, disbelief, and a grim sort of understanding. They knew what this was. They'd seen it before. He planted his feet, refusing to back down. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about them, about the countless others who had endured similar humiliations. I am not moving, officer. I am a police officer. And I demand you retrieve my credentials and cease this harassment immediately. Reynolds' intervention. The screech of tires ripped through the tense silence. A dark sedan, unmarked but radiating authority, skidded to a halt beside O'Malley's patrol car. A woman emerged, tall and radiating controlled energy. Detective Isabella Reynolds. Miles felt a flicker of something he hadn't expected, relief. He straightened, pushing himself away from the hood of the patrol car. Reynolds' eyes scanned the scene, O'Malley's flushed face, the scattering of onlookers held back by yellow tape, and then landed on Miles. Recognition flashed across her features. Corbin? Miles Corbin, is that you? O'Malley puffed out his chest. Detective, I apprehended this individual. He was acting suspicious, loitering near the bank. Reynolds cut him off with a sharp gesture. Shut it, O'Malley. Her voice was low, dangerous. She advanced on him, her gaze unwavering. You apprehended Detective Corbin? On what grounds? O'Malley stammered, his face turning an alarming shade of purple. Well, he fit the description. The description? Reynolds repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Let me guess. Blackmail? That's the whole damn description, isn't it, O'Malley? She stepped closer, invading his personal space. You pulled your weapon on a fellow officer based on nothing but his skin color? Are you out of your goddamn mind? He flinched under her scrutiny, shrinking in stature despite his bulk. I didn't know. He didn't identify himself. And did you give him the chance, Kevin? Did you even bother to ask for his credentials before you went full Kalba? Reynolds' eyes flicked to the crowd, then back to O'Malley. This is a textbook case of racial profiling and gross incompetence. I am relieving you of duty, effective immediately. Hand over your weapon and your badge. O'Malley's jaw dropped. You can't do that. Watch me. Reynolds retorted, her voice laced with steel. He knew better than to argue. With trembling hands, he unbuckled his holster, removed his badge, and placed them in Reynolds' outstretched palm. The humiliation was palpable, radiating off him in waves. Reynolds turned to Miles, her expression softening. Miles, I am so sorry. This is unacceptable. I promise you, this will be dealt with swiftly and decisively. She extended a hand. Are you all right? Miles took her hand, his grip firm. I'm fine, Izzy. Just tired. He met her gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. Tired of this shit. Framed. The captain's words hung in the cramped office like stale cigarette smoke. Suspension pending a full IA investigation, O'Malley. That's where we're at. Kay stared, jaw slack. Suspension? Over some punk resisting arrest? He attacked me, Captain. I was defending myself. He's claiming excessive force. Says he was just trying to understand why he was being stopped. And witnesses corroborate that account, Kevin. Multiple witnesses. The captain sighed, rubbing a hand over his tired eyes. The dashcam footage. It doesn't look good. You escalated the situation, plain and simple. Rage simmered beneath Kay's skin. Witnesses? Probably a bunch of bleeding heart liberals. And that damn dashcam. Always watching, always judging. This whole thing was a joke. A career-ending joke. He saw his future, the one he'd envisioned since he was a kid, vanishing like a mirage. So what? This guy, Miles Carter, he just gets to walk? After assaulting a police officer? He's being released. Pending the outcome of the investigation. And frankly, Kevin, if I were you, I'd be less worried about Carter and more worried about explaining your actions. The captain's gaze hardened. Now get out of my office. Out on the street, the midday sun beat down, reflecting off the asphalt in shimmering waves. Kay felt a headache building behind his eyes, a dull throbbing that amplified his anger. He couldn't let this stand. Couldn't let some entitled, some guy, ruin everything. He needed to take back control. The plan formed slowly, a dark seed sprouting in the fertile ground of his resentment. He knew Carter's car, a late-model sedan, nothing flashy. He'd seen it parked near the precinct a few times. Opportunity. He'd created this mess, but he could clean it up too. Later that evening, shadows stretched long and thin across the parking lot behind Carter's apartment building. Kay, dressed in dark clothing, moved with a practiced stealth honed by years on the force. He'd parked 2 blocks away, a precaution ingrained in him. He located Carter's car easily. The driver's side door was unlocked, a stroke of luck he didn't question. Inside, the air smelled faintly of leather and something sweeter, like vanilla. Kay pulled out the small baggie from his pocket. Inside were 2 grams of crack cocaine, confiscated from a bus last month and conveniently forgotten in his locker. He tucked the baggie deep under the driver's seat, wedging it between the springs and the carpet. He took a moment to ensure it was well hidden. A casual search wouldn't reveal it. He smeared a bit of grime on the bag, making it look like it had been there for a while. A wave of nausea washed over him as he stared at the planted evidence. It was wrong, he knew, but it was also necessary. This was about survival. About protecting what was his. About making sure Miles Carter paid the price for his insolence. He closed the door softly, careful not to make a sound. As he walked away, He felt a strange mix of relief and disgust. He'd crossed the line. But he told himself this was war. And in war, anything was justified. Caught on camera, Miles felt the metallic tang of fear coating his tongue. O'Malley's parting smirk wasn't just arrogance, it was a promise. A promise of retribution. Miles knew the type. A cornered animal, wounded pride, fueled by a toxic blend of entitlement and prejudice. The kind who'd rather burn the whole forest down than admit he was wrong. He glanced around the cramped precinct break room. Empty. Good. He pulled out his phone, his fingers moving with practiced ease. The tiny pinhole camera was almost invisible, nestled beside the speaker grill. He propped the phone against the stack of paper coffee cups, angling it towards the doorway. He hit record. Just in case. He muttered to himself, the words barely audible. The air conditioning hummed, a dull, monotonous drone that did little to soothe his frayed nerves. He poured himself a cup of the stale, burnt coffee, the aroma doing nothing to improve his mood. He needed to appear normal, unconcerned. He sat at the chipped formica table, pretending to scroll through news articles on his phone. Each notification ping was a jolt, each footstep in the hallway sent a shiver down his spine. Then, he saw him. O'Malley, swaggering down the hall, a glint in his eye that wasn't humor. He carried a manila envelope, tucked casually under his arm. Miles's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. He kept his eyes glued to his phone screen, forcing himself to take a slow, deliberate sip of his coffee. O'Malley paused just outside the doorway, peering into the break room. He scanned the space, his gaze lingering on Miles for a fraction too long. Miles met his stare, his expression carefully blank. O'Malley's eyes narrowed, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face before he pushed into the room. "Corbin," O'Malley said, his voice dripping with false cordiality. "Just admiring your dedication. Always working hard." Miles simply nodded, his fingers tightening around his phone. He could feel the sweat prickling on his palms. O'Malley sauntered over to the bulletin board, pretending to examine the outdated safety notices. He fiddled with the pushpins, his movements jerky and unnatural. Then, with a swift, almost imperceptible motion, he slid the manila envelope behind the board, concealing it from casual view. "You know," O'Malley said, turning back to Miles, "sometimes things aren't always as they seem. People make mistakes. Things get misplaced." He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. Miles rose slowly, placing his coffee cup on the table. "Is there something you wanted, Officer O'Malley?" he asked, his voice calm and steady, belying the turmoil inside. O'Malley shrugged, his eyes glittering with a challenge. "Just making conversation, Corbin. Just making conversation." He turned and walked out of the break room, leaving a trail of simmering animosity in his wake. Miles waited, counting to 10, before retrieving his phone. He stopped the recording. The screen showed O'Malley's entire performance, clear as day. The planting of the evidence. The veiled threat. A grim satisfaction settled over Miles, a cold, hard knot in his stomach. O'Malley thought he was so clever, so untouchable. He thought he could play Miles. He was wrong. Miles had just caught him red-handed. Now, it was time to play his own hand. The truth revealed. A palpable tension clung to the air in the precinct briefing room, a nervous undercurrent humming beneath the sterile glare of the fluorescent lights. Officer K, ever the cynic, lounged against the back wall, arms crossed in a gesture that spoke volumes. "So, Corbin, going to pull a rabbit out of your hat and make this whole mess vanish?" Miles met the jibe with silence, placing the evidence bag on the table with painstaking precision. Inside, cushioned by soft cotton, rested a small, aged silver locket. "Recovered from beneath Mr. Henderson's seat during a follow-up vehicle search, Officer O'Malley," Miles stated, his tone devoid of inflection. "The serial number confirms it. Reported stolen 3 weeks prior from a residence a couple of blocks from the initial incident." O'Malley straightened abruptly, pushing off the wall. "Well, color me surprised. Looks like Henderson had a secret or two. Case closed, Corbin, just like I said." Not quite sealed yet. Miles countered, his gaze steady. He nodded to Izzy, who subdued the room lights. A screen descended with a quiet whir. With a click, grainy footage flickered to life. The perspective was shaky, distant, but the subject was clear. Henderson, hands raised in surrender, retreating. O'Malley advancing, bellowing. Then, the takedown, excessive and unwarranted. The camera zoomed in, capturing O'Malley's hand dipping into his pocket. A fleeting flash of something metallic as it slid beneath the car. Silence descended, broken only by the projector's rhythmic purr. The self-assuredness that had colored O'Malley's face gave way to an expression of stunned disbelief, then simmering rage. "That's fabricated," he blurted, the denial lacking its usual force. Miles terminated the video. "Authenticated, officer. Every single frame. It's the real deal." A voice cut through the stillness from the back of the room. Eleanor Dubois moved forward, her eyes connecting briefly with Miles's in a silent acknowledgement. "I witnessed the event," she declared, her voice firm and unwavering. "I was walking my dog. That officer, his actions were disproportionate. And directly after the arrest, he stooped by the car for a brief moment. I assumed he was retrieving something." O'Malley whirled on her, his face contorted. "You meddling liar! You weren't even there." Mrs. Dubois remained unfazed. "I was present, officer. I also saw Detective Corbin attempting to defuse the situation. You disregarded him. You disregarded everyone." Her gaze swept across the room. Detective Corbin repeatedly identified himself as law enforcement. Izzy stepped up, her face a mask of professional severity. "Kevin O'Malley, you are under arrest for evidence tampering, obstruction of justice, and employing excessive force." She signaled to two uniformed officers, who moved in to restrain O'Malley. As the cuffs clicked into place, O'Malley's meticulously maintained composure shattered. "This is a setup. You can't do this. I was just doing my job." He fixed Miles with a venomous stare. "You think you're so high and mighty, Corbin? You'll pay for this. You all will." Miles watched him being escorted away, his expression unreadable. The familiar ache of weariness settled into his bones. Justice, even achieved, often left a bitter taste. He understood this was far from over. This marked only the beginning. Inside job. The stale coffee tasted like burnt rubber, but Miles needed the jolt. He scrolled through the crime scene photos on his tablet, the sterile images a stark contrast to the opulent chaos he'd witnessed in person. The Van der Linde diamond gone. Security footage conveniently corrupted. Alarms inexplicably silent. He tapped a photo of a shattered display case, the laser grid deactivated. Professional work. Too professional. "Anything?" Izzy asked, dropping a file onto his desk with a soft thud. Miles sighed, rubbing his temples. "Too clean, Izzy. Like a surgeon did it, not a smash-and-grab artist." "And the silent alarm? That's not just a malfunction." Izzy leaned in, her brow furrowed. "So, you're thinking inside job?" "I'm leaning toward inside job." Miles corrected, highlighting a circled area in one of the photos. "See this? A smudged fingerprint on the inside of the deactivated laser housing. No one should have touched that except the security tech." He pulled up the transcript of the security tech's interview. David Harding, 30-something, clean record, worked for Van der Linde Security for 5 years. Seemed like the perfect, unremarkable employee. Miles hated perfectly unremarkable in cases like these. Harding claims he ran a diagnostic check on the system the day before, standard procedure. Izzy read over his shoulder. "Says everything was functioning perfectly." Miles tapped the screen again, switching to a close-up of the alarm control panel. He also stated he deactivated the silent alarm during the diagnostic to test its functionality. Said it re-engaged automatically. And you don't buy it? The system logs show no record of a diagnostic check on that specific alarm zone in the past week. And Harding's explanation for the discrepancy? He said he must have forgotten to log it. A 5-year veteran forgets to log a full system diagnostic? Unlikely. Miles zoomed in on another photo, this one showing the point of entry, a service entrance usually used for deliveries. Harding also mentioned he checked all the doors and windows that evening. Said everything was locked tight. But the delivery door was jimmied, wasn't it? Izzy asked. Jimmied, but expertly. No forced entry marks on the exterior. The kind of job only someone with intimate knowledge of the locking mechanism could pull off, someone like a security tech. He looked up at Izzy, a grim understanding dawning in her eyes. Harding also conveniently had the night off. Claimed he had a prior engagement. A poker night with friends. Izzy crossed her arms. Did we check his alibi? We did. His friends confirmed the poker game. Said he was there the entire night. But, Miles paused, scrolling through a separate file. One of Harding's friends has a brother. A known associate of Vincent the Vulture Moretti. The Vulture. A name that sent a chill down Miles' spine. A ruthless art thief with a reputation for elaborate schemes and a penchant for disappearing without a trace. So, Harding provided the access, the Vulture provided the muscle. Izzy said, piecing it together. And the poker game was just a cover. Miles nodded, the gears turning in his mind. It's a classic inside job, Izzy. But it's bigger than just a stolen diamond. Harding wouldn't risk his career, his freedom, for just a cut of the take. There's something else going on here. Something the Vulture wanted, or something someone wanted to protect. He leaned back in his chair, the exhaustion settling in. We need to bring Harding in. And this time, we asked the right questions. The chase. The shattered display case glittered under the harsh fluorescent lights of the jewelry store, a silent testament to the audacity of the crime. Miles Corbin, his dark suit impeccably tailored despite the chaos, knelt beside it, a single gloved hand hovering inches above a stray shard of glass. The air hung thick with the scent of ozone and cheap cologne, the kind the fleeing robbers probably splashed on to mask their desperation. They weren't pros. Miles stated, his voice calm and measured, contrasting sharply with the frantic energy buzzing around him. Too much broken glass, too much panic. He straightened, his gaze sweeping across the scene, taking in every detail, the direction of the footprints, the discarded crowbar, the lingering scent of burnt rubber outside. He moved with a quiet purpose, ignoring the well-meaning but ultimately obstructive questions from uniformed officers. Miles trusted his gut, a sense honed by years of navigating a system that often saw him as the suspect, not the savior. He found it now, a faint scuff mark on the pavement leading away from the main street, almost invisible to the untrained eye. They went that way, he announced, pointing. Black sedan, likely stolen. Let's move. The next few minutes were a blur of sirens and flashing lights. Miles, behind the wheel of his unmarked car, navigated the city streets with practiced ease. He kept a steady hand, his mind focused, blocking out the radio chatter and the insistent thrum of adrenaline. He knew these streets, knew the back alleys and the shortcut routes the robbers would likely take. He spotted them a few blocks over, the black sedan weaving erratically through traffic, a desperate attempt to lose the pursuing police cars. Miles expertly cut them off, forcing them onto a quieter side street. The sedan swerved, tires screeching, and slammed into a parked vehicle. Showtime, Miles muttered, cutting the engine. He drew his weapon, his movements fluid and precise. He approached the damaged sedan cautiously, his senses on high alert. Police! Get out of the car with your hands up. Two figures emerged, faces contorted with fear and defiance. One was clutching a bag overflowing with jewels. They hesitated, then lunged not towards Miles, but towards a narrow alleyway. Miles didn't hesitate. He moved with a speed that belied his calm demeanor, cutting them off before they could disappear into the darkness. He didn't fire his weapon, instead, he used his intellect. He noticed the uneven pavement, the loose cobblestones. With a swift kick, he dislodged one, sending it skittering under the feet of the fleeing robbers. They stumbled, tripped, and fell in a tangled heap. Within seconds, Miles had them pinned, disarming them and securing their hands behind their backs. He waited for the backup to arrive, his face impassive, his breathing even. He was a detective, a damn good one, regardless of what anyone else thought. The jewelry was recovered, the criminals apprehended. Another case closed. But as he looked at the faces of the subdued robbers, he knew this wasn't the end, just another turn on a long and winding road. Justice served. The crisp, starched collar felt alien against Miles' skin. He tugged at it subtly as Chief Thompson droned on, his voice booming through the precinct's auditorium. Sunlight glinted off the medals pinned to Miles' chest. Bravery, distinguished service, commendation for exceptional professionalism. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd almost been another statistic, another black man swallowed by the system he swore to uphold. Detective Corbin's quick thinking and unwavering dedication. Thompson continued, his words a blur. Miles saw Eleanor Dubois in the audience, her eyes filled with a quiet pride. He gave her a small, almost imperceptible nod. Her presence was a grounding force, a reminder of what he was fighting for. Izzy stood beside him, her posture ramrod straight. He caught her eye. A flicker of shared understanding passed between them. She knew the hollow echo behind the accolades. The clapping was deafening when Thompson finally finished. Miles shook hands, offered polite smiles, but his mind was elsewhere. He pictured Officer K's face, twisted with hate, the weight of his gun heavy in his hand. Later that day, a formal press release was issued. The police department announced a comprehensive review of its internal policies, focusing on racial bias and de-escalation tactics. Officer K had been placed on administrative leave, pending the outcome of an internal investigation and possible criminal charges. The phrase, "zero tolerance," was used repeatedly, a carefully crafted PR shield. Izzy found him in the break room, staring out the window. The city sprawled below, a tapestry of lives, a mixture of hope and despair. "They're making the right noises," she said, her voice low. "But noises are easy. Change is hard." Miles sighed, turning away from the window. "Heard from the DA? They're building a case." Izzy confirmed. "Assault, reckless endangerment, maybe even a hate crime enhancement. It's not a slam dunk, but they're taking it seriously." He nodded, a knot of tension still lodged in his chest. "Serious enough? Enough to make a difference, I hope," she said, her gaze steady. "This isn't just about him, Miles. It's about sending a message. About accountability." That evening, Miles sat on his porch, the city lights painting the sky with an orange glow. He swirled the amber liquid in his glass, the ice clinking softly. Justice, in its purest form, felt like a distant dream. What he'd received was a carefully calibrated response, designed to quell public outrage, to mitigate damage. Was it truly justice served? Or just a performance of it? He thought of his father, a man who'd faced a lifetime of similar indignities, who'd always told him to fight, to never let them break you. He took a long drink, the whiskey burning a path down his throat. The fight, he knew, was far from over. It was a constant, grinding battle, fought one case, one policy change, one encounter at a time. And he was still standing on the front lines.